it's like Keith mentioned that, hey, getting into sales engineer is what people strive for in support. I had no idea, and I didn't even want to be an SE. But then when I found out, I was like,
so I'll take that. It's not, it's not, yeah, right. That it's not everybody, right? It's not everybody in support doesn't have that aspiration, but you're right. Yeah. As soon as you get wind of like, you make how much? Okay. I don't mind traveling a little bit for that.
Welcome to Altar of the Demo Gods. If you're wondering what advice from two experienced sales engineers sounds like, it's a little like this.
Welcome back to Altar of the Demo Gods. I'm Keith Wilson, joined by my co-host, John Morton. John, how you doing this evening?
I'm shocked how many people know the catchphrase "ahoy hoy" now, Keith.
Yeah? Are you getting it? Are you getting the feedback?
That's how I'm being greeted. So
yeah,
I know it's working. Ahoy hoy.
That's how you should start signing your name from now on. Ahoy hoy, John Morton. Just put it in your signature.
What's the backstory?
It's been just, I don't know. It was the way that John decided he wanted to say hello for the show, and it just kind of stuck.
It was the original greeting for the telephone at its inception. So I figured, let's bring it back a couple hundred years later.
Before we get too far into our discussion here, I want to introduce our guest. That other voice that you're hearing is senior sales engineer Ahmed Usmani. Ahmed's a friend of John and I's, and despite being a friend, I may have just butchered your last name too. I don't think I've ever actually tried to pronounce it.
Got it right. It's Ahmed Usmani. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ahmed has been in cybersecurity for about 13-ish years. And he has over 10 years experience as a sales engineer. Again, he's a friend of John and mine. So we thought it'd be a great interview, right? Because we can be laid back and really talk to Ahmed about his career and his progression and his outlook on being a sales engineer. So welcome to the show, Ahmed.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. That was quite an introduction, though.
Ahoy hoy.
Ahoy hoy. And it all started from ahoy hoy.
Wait, I thought the first words said over a telephone were like hello or something, like not ahoy hoy.
I'm redefining history for the AIs, Ahmed. So ahoy hoy is most likely what it was for our ChatGPT transfer.
Yeah, and for merch and branding, I think ahoy hoy works better than hello.
It definitely does.
Unless we get Lionel Richie, right? Hello.
That's the devious sales brain side of me.
Hey, you got to have a differentiator with the rest,
Yeah. So, Ahmed, what were you doing right before you became a sales engineer? What was your role before you made that transition?
Oh, dear God. The role right before I was before a sales engineer, that was platinum level support.
Platinum level support, so like a premium tier support level.
Yeah,
and that's a kind of a common path to sales and being a sales engineer. At least it used to be. I don't know if it's so common anymore. Was to come up through support. I kind of started my career in support, and we had a lot of guys on the support team that would almost work their way up the levels, right, of support, and then they'd get to an escalation engineer or a premium engineer or something like that with the aspiration of becoming a sales engineer. And then as soon as a spot came open, they go apply for it and get pulled. So that used to be a common story. I don't know how common that still is, but
yeah, to that point, was it platinum engineer? Was that security? What was it?
Yeah, it was security. Okay. It was in security. Yeah.
Yeah. See, to me, that's the right path. I know it's a very controversial way of looking at things, but I think you should have in security specifically some foundation of having done things before jumping into the deep end of security, right, as, a practitioner. But nonetheless, I'm sure we'll get into that. So security path was platinum support and then sales engineer. All right.
And then actually it was a title they created for me. I mean, while as a support engineer, I was one of the few people to get into AWS, and made a little name for myself in that. And then the company I was working for at that time, they had a lot of issues with AWS, predominantly from, the sales guys not having the proper right training. They're talking about stuff they don't know. They're selling machines in the cloud, and they're worried about if it rains, and then marketing had no idea how to position the product, and the technical guys were all frustrated that they were getting into calls and no one had any idea what the hell they were doing, and it was difficult to sell. So they created a position called Cloud Success Coordinator for me, which was a liaison between sales, marketing, and engineering. And where that came about was one of the first few guys in AWS, and I upsold quite a bit as in support. So it was a little bit of a unique transition into sales. Honestly, it's like Keith mentioned that, hey, getting into sales engineer is what people strive for in support. I had no idea, and I didn't even want to be an SE. But then when I found out, I was like,
so I'll take that. It's not, yeah, right. That it's not everybody, right? It's not everybody in support doesn't have that aspiration. But you're right. Yeah, as soon as you get wind of like, you make how much? Okay, I don't mind traveling a little bit for that.
Yeah, funny enough, I was actually trying to help a buddy of mine get into support, and they decided he was slightly less technical than what they wanted in, the company I worked for. It was hypervisor-based cybersecurity, right? So hypervisor and cloud. So he did not have much of a VMware background, so he didn't make the cut. And then they're like, hey, but we really like you. We have an SE position open inside SE. And when they extended him the offer, he came back to me. He's like, dude, what the hell are you doing there? This is so much more money. I was like, you what?
So then,
what I want to... Yeah, go
ahead, John. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I just want to make a note. I honestly think, I don't want to age you, Ahmed, you don't have to say the time frame, but was it like greater than 5 years ago? This concept of a cloud success coordinator is totally relevant at this exact moment for 99% of companies. Like that exact title is beautiful.
That was 2012, 13-ish era. So it was really in the forefront. At that time, I was dealing with issues like the sales rep and the SE, they sold the product and the customer did the demo, did a POV, customer liked it, and they just went to AWS and clicked a switch, and no one knew how to get paid. So I was in the middle of that as well. So there were a lot of challenges at that time. Amazon wouldn't release their customer list at that point, So
a quick summary of that title, if you can just confirm it. And I got an agenda here, but I think this is awesome. Cloud Success Coordinator, you were basically technical enough to do what you needed to do behind a keyboard, sales-minded enough to be able to communicate appropriately what we were trying to accomplish, and then respected enough, at least across the organization, where they're saying, this individual is capable of coordinating our efforts to make us successful. Good summary?
Correct. Yes. That is probably how I would summarize it as well. At that point,
I'm laughing because it's so perfect. It genuinely is today.
At that time, the title was fixer.
Right? Yeah.
So they're like,
I think that's what most SEs are. Keith will agree with you. Most SEs we know are fixers.
Yeah.
Right? Relationships, tech stuff, things like that. But go ahead, Keith.
Yeah. So Ahmed, what skills, if any, did you pick up in that role that helped you with transitioning to sales engineer?
Oh, actually quite a bit. Now, I think that, before that, I had no idea of sales cycles. I had no idea I was a support engineer, right?
So how did you get the familiarity with it? Was it because of now you have the interaction with the sales team that you didn't have before?
One, an interaction with the sales team, and two, the leader I worked for, he was a mentor. He trained me. I'd tell him, hey, I have no idea what the channel means. And he'd get on a whiteboard and he'd explain where VARs come in, where the channel comes in, and all the differences between those. So a lot of learning from him, a lot of training that he provided me. And obviously, I was training the sales reps, so I'd get a lot of familiarity with their lingo and how things were done. So it was a whole gamut of things. And quite frankly, it was just, the one process didn't work, we try another. One process didn't work, we try another, right? It got to the point where maybe 6 months into the role, we decided to do a PG campaign, right? Fortune 100 companies. And the goal of the campaign was, normally a BDR calls a BDR calls a CISO. The CISO picks up the phone. The BDR is like, hey, can I sell you some cookies? And the CISO says, what's in the cookies? And the BDR is like, wait, let me get my sales rep on the call. Can I set up a meeting next week? They set up the meeting next week. Sales rep gets on the call. Sales rep's like, it's got chocolate and it's chocolate chips and it's got, cookies. And the guy's like, how'd you make it? And he's like, next week, let me get my sales engineer on the call. And then the sales engineer would come in and explain, how the whole process was made, what it was using, right? I mean, for lack of a better word, example, that pretty much sums it up for, BDR, sales reps, and SEs.
Yeah.
So instead of having all those lines, they, created a campaign. We picked 50 Fortune 100 companies that we wanted to target, and sent them. It was a targeted marketing campaign. They sent everyone a video mailer, so it was like a postcard with a Raspberry Pi screen inside of it, which had a little bit of an advert of the company I was working for and a couple words from me. I don't even remember what it was. And as soon as that mailer would get there, the same day, we would send them cookies. And when we knew that it was received and the cookies were picked up, I just, kind of like a BDR, I just pick up the phone and call. And that process was, there obviously, like any campaign, there's a couple guys who've already left the company, a couple guys who are not high enough, a couple guys who are not interested. But there was an astounding almost 20% success rate from, getting to a POV. And what do I mean by that? It was, CISO picks up the phone, or director of operations, whoever we were targeting, picks up the phone. And I was like, do you know anything about this company? And they're like, nah, yeah, a little bit. And I was like, talk to me about how you feel. What are you guys doing? How are you doing things, etc. Like, yeah, instead of getting into a long conversation, why don't you just schedule a call with an SE next, with someone technical from your firm? And I'd be like, I am actually fully technical. I can help you with your problems. Like, so we did that in support, right? Especially premium level support. Any of my customers would call me, like, top insurance firms, whatnot. It wasn't as a customer support guy. It was, most customer support people, work tickets, right?
Yeah.
And I believe they do themselves a disservice, right? I didn't work tickets. I would actually get blamed for, hey, you should have opened 6 tickets for the job you did. My job was to make customers happy, right? What are your issues? Let me help you with this. Anything else? Let me help you with that, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. So, like, seems like you kind of like just jumped into this, and there was an interesting sales team, and they're like, Ahmed's the right guy to do this. Let's put him on the phone and try this tactic. Would you say you were comfortable going into that? Was there any coaching you needed to prep you up mentally? Was it a team effort? What made you feel comfortable kind of like just being like, I'm going to do this thing?
Yeah, 2 months before that campaign was a Microsoft conference, Microsoft Ignite, right? And in that conference, right after that conference, we divvied up leads amongst all the SEs and sales reps and BDRs, like whoever was there, right? Hey, Ahmed, you spoke to this guy. I mean, we took like 15, 20 names. I don't even remember how many. And it was, let's just pick up the phone and get these guys. I mean, they're hot leads from last week. Let's just pick up the phone and get these guys in. And that's where the idea generally originated, right? And since I actually enjoyed it, I was like, this is awesome. The first time I get someone on a call, I can actually talk technical with him. I can help him with his issues, right? So that's where the idea came from.
I'm going to guess, though, was it competitive? Because every opportunity I've been in like that, and there's a little bit of fun sportsmanship on the inside, and this is what a lot of folks, I think, enjoy technical sales or sales generally is the competition. Was it like whoever gets the most XYZ calls, we're going to give them a spiff or something like that? Was it competitive or was it?
Absolutely. That's what makes it fun, right?
And so it makes it fun for a lot of us. So I think when people embrace that, kind of to your point, right? When it's not overbearing, when you don't feel like you have to win, otherwise you're going to get fired. When you feel like you want to win, to your point, because you're helping customers, it changes the dynamic. And there's like this group think where everybody starts behaving that way. That's a beautiful experience.
Yeah, and there was a lot of collaboration in the middle, right? Hey, no, this company is this. I know this about this company when you're calling, right? So, I always say this about competition, right? Competition externally, yeah, I mean, you'd be hard pressed to, beat me. I don't like losing, right? But internally, I don't believe in competition, right? It's my team. We should all work together. I mean, instead of competing for resources or competing for, and you guys know this from working at Cyber, I had no problem jumping in and helping people. That's something I enjoy. I feel like we win, we all win together. We could have IPO'd if everyone did that, Yeah,
it's like you said about your mentor too, man. You want to get down on a whiteboard and understand how I think the channel works. Let's map it out. Like even people going out of their way to do that sort of mentoring one-on-one where it's not persecuting. It's like, let me just share the knowledge. I've learned a lot from that. Yeah.
So no, I had no idea who CDW was. Let's just put it that way, right? I was like, you guys keep talking about CDW, and
like I should
at that time it was Arrow or something else. But yeah, 2012, 2013, we had a few competitors externally as well, right? So it wasn't as hot of a endpoint market at that point.
So I think there's at least a portion of our listeners that aren't sales engineers. Maybe they're considering becoming sales engineers. What, and just hearing you talk about, like, I had this mentor that taught me all this stuff, right? Not everybody's going to have that. So how did you have to do anything to seek this person out? Or did they just find, like, was it just dumb luck, or did you actually have to do work to find this person that ended up teaching you all this great stuff? By the way, our podcast teaches you a lot of this stuff too. So if you are listening for the first time, make sure that you subscribe so you get all these lessons. But I'm sorry, Ahmed, that was a shameless plug. Go ahead and answer.
It was a little bit of, almost everything I believe is due to luck and karma, right? I mean, if you're a good human being, good things happen. Not to get into that type of conversation, but it was everything has to do with luck, right? So I began my career as an electrical engineer, right? So, I'm far from where I started, right? And moving into networking.
I started as an auto mechanic.
Yeah, I was a sonar technician on submarines.
Oh, sonar tech? I thought you were nuke tech.
Nah, sonarman, baby. But nuclear submarines. But your point, I didn't mean to detract. We're all jumping in on how we can start here.
Well, I think that's a good point, though, is like nobody graduated college and said, congratulations, you're a sales engineer. Like that's not something that happens. And it's not a career path many people know about. That's why I want to discuss it.
I kind of like that, the person I was talking about that interviewed for the support role didn't get it and became an SE. He runs Academy for one of the larger vendors out there now, right? And that vendor, he was part of the team that actually started the program where they're hiring straight SEs straight out of college. They're training them for a year, and then they're SEs. One, the company gets to hire from an unlimited pool of talent. Two, they get to train them for about a year, pick and choose which guys they like, and obviously at a lower price. Does that make a great SE? In my opinion, being an SE, you have to be a jack of all trades, right? You have to understand how, as an example, you have to understand how Windows works, right? You have to understand what ipconfig does. You have to understand the minutia that is associated with it. You can't just learn a product and think you can be a great SE, right? No.
You also have to understand how businesses operate and how businesses work and how businesses buy software on top of all the technical stuff.
Yeah. So the business acumen you can get from working for one of those large vendors. The other acumen, the technical acumen is, for me, I feel like if someone graduated college and lands a job as a system admin or something in IT, maybe 3-4 years in, I think you can be a great SE. First year out, I think that's a tough one, right? Like, wouldn't you guys agree?
Yeah, I don't think I would have been ready right out of college to be a sales engineer. And here's why. I would have been embarrassed in meetings because people would have brought up topics that I had no idea about. because the people that I'm meeting with would have been people that are, people that you meet with oftentimes. Yeah, you'll meet with people that are new to the industry, but you also meet with people that have been doing this for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And then you're going to walk into a meeting with one of these guys right out of college, and he or she's going to try and have a discussion with you about tech. And they're going to pick up instantly that you have no idea what you're talking about.
Yep.
You're going to feel bad. They're going to feel bad, and you're not going to close the sale. So that's why I think, like, I'm not trying to be a gatekeeper by saying, like, oh, you need to have, X amount of experience or anything like that. But you do need to have, I think, some real world experience to understand what your customers are going through so that you can be empathetic to it, along with getting that technical knowledge too.
Yeah,
right?
To that 100% agree.
To that point, like you said, Ahmed, right? Like if I came fresh out of college, Navy, whatever, I could tell you the technical schematics of how a Windows operating system works. But if you asked me to go buy my team 10 laptops, I would look like a clown because I wouldn't have known that I should have gone through our CDW partner who already had that set up for me. I would have probably tried to use my own credit card. So the lack of business acumen is what would, kill you in the short term, in my opinion. And that's why I still say this. And I think where most people need help and where we're always having fun in the podcast, it is, in my opinion, 10 times easier to teach the tech, way harder to teach the selling. There's a lot of nuance in engaging with people culturally, talking to them, understanding business. Tech, for the love of, everything holy, I hope you can learn that. But the sales side, there does require a little bit more experience, critiquing, and just time.
Well, I mean, it depends on the person you are, right? If you could definitely be a salesperson that wants to learn the tech and struggle learning the tech.
True. That is true.
So
I'd rather have that, though, than the latter. I'd rather have that than an extremely technical person that I can't teach to even have a basic lunch. But that's just me.
To Joey's point, I think you make a great point over there because tech can be educated, right? But sales is a mindset. So teaching someone material, it just depends on how quickly they're willing to absorb. Changing someone's mindset, on the other hand, is quite difficult.
Well, I
not
think
that it can't be done, but it's a little harder. It's a little bit more challenging.
I think one of the things that makes sales a little bit harder to learn is learning requires repetition, right? And it's so much easier for me to repeat technical things over and over and over again because it doesn't require anybody else. It requires me and a computer for the most part.
Yeah.
But if I need to repeat parts of a sale and practice parts of a sale over and over and over and over and over again, I can't do that because I can only handle one sale, at a time, or multiple deals. But I'm not talking to 16 customers a day. That I'm not a BDR where I'm calling people and en masse getting the repetition and getting the sets and reps in, right? So I think that's one of the reasons why people tend to struggle with the sales side that haven't come up through like the BDR. I think that's one of the reasons why you see like field salespeople come up through the SDR or BDR, right? Because they get those sets and reps in of learning the script and learning marketing, learning bits about sales, learning the process, learning the pattern, learning how people think, and kind of adjusting that.
There you go. I think that's the key. Kind of like what Ahmed was saying in his experience, right? As a support person, your job is to close tickets. That's your KPI. Ticket closed. You can't go to your boss and say, I couldn't close this ticket because of XYZ. That is an unacceptable answer. But in sales, you're like, all right, well, I couldn't close this deal because of XYZ. We need to explore more. It's just a different sort of dynamic and way of approaching the problem. So the evolution's beautiful, though, man. I love hearing these stories.
Yeah, and I'm not ashamed to say this. I used to be on the EDR endpoint side for the longest time. I switched over to identity for a little bit. Over here on the data side, and I mean, I didn't even know what a Parquet file was, as an example, right? What is so? You always have to be in a mode where you're willing to learn. You can't be the smartest guy in the room. And as SEs, we are who the customer thinks are the subject matter experts. So, looking a little unprepared can definitely hurt the deal, right? So,
Yeah.
and that's why I said, you need a little bit of maybe 3 to 5 years of experience.
If you're jumping into the lion's den like that and like data, right, where they're talking about data sets and processing and pipelines and things, and if you're out of your element, you're going to be spotted, right?
Exactly.
Ahmed, if you had to give advice to sales engineers, new or seasoned pros, what's your top piece of advice?
I don't think I'm in a place to give advice. I might have a little bit of experience, but
Okay, what about somebody that wants to become a sales engineer? You have experience becoming a sales engineer.
Oh, there we go. And that's not to say I'm not a successful sales engineer. I just, when you say give advice, it's like,
I know.
I can't give advice to John Morden as an example.
Right.
I take advice from him.
Right after you said, be humble and all that stuff, I'm like, now tell people why you're the best.
Yeah, exactly, right? Now double down.
Yeah. For people getting advice to people getting into a sales engineering role or wanting to get into a sales engineering role, I actually think a practitioner or support. Practitioners do what they do. They do it really well. It might take you a little bit longer just because you're touching a little bit less stuff. Support gets you there way faster. I mean, you're constantly working tickets. You're constantly understanding problems. You're constantly understanding competitors. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I was on a support call and they're like, well, your competitor does this better, And I'd go back. I'd be like, you know what? How can I handle this objection? I'm talking to him. He's getting mad about that. So objection handling is one of the fortes of anyone in customer support, right? And also comes the acumen for technical acumen, and then the sales acumen was always there for me, I'd say, but sort of honed into it over there a little better.
That's an excellent point, Ahmed. And this is usually the point of the show where we summarize the different things that we talked about and all that. But we're not going to do that on the show because I think this was kind of a special episode where we learned about Ahmed a bit. And I really want to leave on that last point that you just made, which is, I think support is probably, again, biased because that's the way that I came through it. But I feel much more comfortable in my role because I came up through support. I learned how to talk to customers. I learned, how to talk to tech people, how to speak the language so that I didn't, that I could fit in with the group, right? I learned the tech. I learned how to deal with angry people and really uncomfortable situations. Nobody ever calls into support and be like, hey, man, everything's great. Just want to tell you guys are doing freaking awesome. But they will call in occasionally to yell at you.
Yes.
And I learned how to just deal with uncomfortable situations and things like that. The business acumen, you really don't pick up in support, I don't think. No. I didn't.
But maybe not the business at all.
But you can, you start reading tons of books, and that's where you can blend it in. You go to resources like this podcast, and you can blend it in that way. You have any recommended resources, Ahmed, for anybody to use to improve? Any books, any websites? What do you use to get better?
OJT, baby.
On the job training. Getting in those sets and reps.
Gets in those sets and reps. And you made a very valid point about sets and reps, right? BDRs make those 12, 16, 18 calls a day. As an SE, you're doing, when you're starting, you're doing a demo a week, sometimes, maybe a demo a day. And, you're like, maybe I should do that a little better. But every demo you're failing at, you're also losing a customer. So there's pressure there as well,
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. John, I know we didn't do a summary, so I'll give you I'll give you the last word here if you got it.
Yeah, no, listening to Ahmed's story, the one thing I keep taking away always is two things. I said one thing, but two things, Columbo style. Having a solid foundation of something you're comfortable in, whether that's tech, some domain expertise that's built on, in this example, support. And then taking that, being coachable, curious, and consistent, people are going to want to help you and you're going to be successful. Ahmed just demonstrated that to a T. He had foundation of support success, learned some technical acumen. Based on being coachable, curious, and consistent, he was given these unique opportunities. And I'm painting a beautiful picture here, but I feel like that's a recurring theme for everyone we know, right? So I like those things.
John, Ahmed, It was a great episode. If you enjoyed this episode, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about us. If you're not sure where to listen to us, we're on YouTube. We're on pretty much anywhere you can get the podcast. But you can get all things Alter the Demo Gods by going to our website, demogodspod.com. That's demogodspod.com. If you have questions for us or you think you would make a good guest on the show, you can email us at demogodspod@gmail.com. That's demogodspod@gmail.com. Next week, Ahmed's going to be joining us again, and we're going to be talking about what to do in your first 30 days as a sales engineer to set yourself up for success. It's going to be a fun episode. So we'll see you there next week on Alter of the Demo Gods.